Happy Monday, youngins. So, this week we're going to focus on what's essentially just a single aspect of uh, civilization, or one of the main traits of a civilization that I went over last week. And that trait is really of complex institutions, and specifically the institution of government, and even more specific than government, laws, and basically how humans started to develop laws to govern the way we act around people and the way we treat each other. If you think about it, creating and enforcing the law is really the job of the government. That's why we create governments to do, is for law. So understanding where laws come from is essentially understanding how we started to develop this concept of government. So the way we're going to be looking at law this week is we're going to be looking at Hammurabi's Code and working with Hammurabi's Code. You may have heard of Hammurabi's Code already. You may not. Either way, it's fine. But Hammurabi's Code is really significant for humanity, and that's because Hammurabi's Code is the oldest system of laws, or let me rephrase that, the oldest recorded system of laws that we have. Now, there may have been, and there probably were, laws and legal systems that existed before Hammurabi's Code, but we don't have a record of those, just because, and this goes back to what I was talking about, prehistory and early humans, stuff that we don't have a record of. These would be so long ago that there's no record of them left. We don't have, there's no documents or artifacts to reference them. Hammurabi's Code is the oldest that we have. So for our intents and purposes, we'll essentially look at Hammurabi's Code as the oldest system of laws in existence. They are not still enforced. They have since been replaced by other systems of laws. But just some background on Hammurabi's Code and Hammurabi himself. We don't know that much about Hammurabi. What we do know is that he was the king of the Mesopotamian city-state of Babylon, that during his reign did rule over a number of other city-states and basically most of Mesopotamia. And this was about 4,000 years ago, so this would be 2000 BCE. And we know that Hammurabi, again, was the king, and that he created and put into place a system of laws. And beyond that, we really don't know that much about him. Again, this is such a long time ago, and we just don't have sufficient records to give us a better, or let me rephrase that. We don't have sufficient records to give us a more detailed or a more in-depth understanding of who Hammurabi was as a person. Really, what we have to go on is the fact that he was a king and he put into place a system of laws. And the way these laws were put in place, the Mesopotamians did have a language and a system of writing they used called cuneiform. It's similar to hieroglyphics, but different. We have not, to my knowledge, fully deciphered cuneiform, but some important things to take into account regarding this is that even while the Mesopotamians did have a system of writing, most people would not be able to read or write. Most people were not literate. So conveying the law to people would have to take place primarily through symbolism and through like word of mouth. Or somebody who could read would have to read it and tell most people what it said. And the way Hammurabi basically informed people of his law and kept a reminder that his laws were in place were big skulls. I cannot talk today. It is Friday afternoon and I'm tired, but I'll get through it. So they were big stone sculptures called stelae, which would basically be put up in the town squares of all the major city-states that he ruled over. And the stelae would have all the laws and the entirety of Hammurabi's code carved into them. Basically, they're literally just this giant wall of stone that has carvings on it. So the law would be carved into it, and also a sculpture at the top showing Hammurabi receiving the laws from the Mesopotamian god of justice, Shamash. And basically, this was used to convey to the people that this was serious, this was important to pay attention to, and also, since there's a sculpture of the king receiving the laws from Shamash, he was using that to give himself more authority and get people to be more willing to accept that he had the authority to impose these laws, because it's essentially saying, these aren't my laws, these are the god of justice's laws. So if you have a problem, you can take it up with him, I guess. I don't know. What you're going to be doing today is you're going to be reading through excerpts of Hammurabi's code. There are over 200 laws in Hammurabi's code. We are not going to be looking at all of them. We're only going to be looking and working with a handful that cover a variety of subjects, just to give us an idea of what this legal system was like. So as you start reading through the laws and processing them, I do want you to start thinking about, is this really justice? And you can kind of compare it to the justice system or the legal system that we have in place today. As you'll find, if you look at these, and as you should find, Hammurabi has a number of laws on the books that we don't have laws for today. And conversely, we have laws in place today that he didn't have in place. So it is worth, even though, again, the questions that you need to answer over the excerpts that you're reading today, even though those questions don't directly ask you to state whether or not these laws are just or not, definitely start thinking about whether or not you believe these laws are basically a good system of justice. So I look forward to seeing and hearing what your takeaways from this are, and let's have a good week.